Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's event. My name is Joe, and I'm from the Festival of Debate. If you've not come across the Festival of Debate before, we are an open platform for people to come together to discuss the key social, environmental, political, and historical issues of the day. Today is actually our second to last event for the festival. So there's one more event to check out, which is George Monbiot, which is an in-person event on the 23rd of June. You can find out details about that event on our website, festivalofdebate.com. But I'm very excited about this afternoon's event, which is all about how we can build an autism-inclusive Sheffield. And I'm very happy to introduce our chair for today's event. Could you please give a warm welcome to Melissa Simmons?
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. So welcome to this session. If you could put the slides up for me, Joe, I'd appreciate it. Could you go to back to the first slide, please?
That should be the first slide, I think, isn't it? It's the Autism Partnership Network logo, yeah.
I can't see what you can see then. There should be a slide prior to that, just like an introduction with the question on it.
No, I've not got that, Melissa. I've just got the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network logo, and then following that's people's names. Okay.
Well, welcome to this presentation and to this session. And so for today, I'll just pop up on my other one as well so I can see what I've actually written. So for this session, we are the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network. And as part of this session, we're going to be looking at how we can create an autism inclusive city. And in this session, it's about the city of Sheffield. So the people who will be talking today are people who are part of the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network. And so we have Alexis Chappell, and Alexis is the director of the Adult Health and Social Care in the city, in Sheffield City. She's also the lead for the Autism Partnership Board, and she will be discussing the Sheffield Autism Strategy. Then we have Udit Thackeray. He is a psychologist with a neurodivergence characterized by ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. Udit will be discussing the need for autism-specific sex and consent education, education about interpersonal harm and its intersection with racialization. Then we have Blake Williamson, a disability equality trainer and an individual employer with a passion to see Sheffield embrace co-production within its services. Blake is a non-speaking autistic person who will be discussing autism from the non-verbal perspective, and his presentation is titled An Exploration from the Lived Experience of a Sheffield Citizen. And then we have Chloe Wilkes, who is the coordinator for the Sheffield Safe Places organisation, and she will be discussing the work needed to create a network of organisations and businesses to build a pillar of safety in the community for people with a disability, mental health and neurodivergence across the city. And then you have myself, I'm Melissa Simmons. I'm the Adult Autism Coordinator for Voluntary Action Sheffield, and I'm the coordinator for the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network. I'm an autistic adult who was diagnosed as being autistic 7 years ago, which is becoming more and more common for women. They tend to get later diagnoses. So can we have the next slide, please, Joe? I can see a black square over the, okay, can see it now, thank you. No, the black square is there again, that's it, thank you. So this is just explaining that the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network is a network of organisations which are voluntary, community, public, private and statutory, autistic individuals and their support users. And we use the word support users to mean parents, carers, friends, partners, etc., who work with autistic and Asperger's people, their families and carers. And I wouldn't normally use the word Asperger's in a presentation that I'm doing, but I'm using it today to just explain everybody that we include, because nowadays people tend to not use the word Asperger's anymore, we just use the word autistic. And it's just to say that the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network, we now have a Twitter page, and that's Sheffield_SAPN, which is SAPN. And we will have a website in the next few days, and that will be www.sapn, which is sapn.org.uk. So if you could take us to the next slide, please, Joe. Thank you. These are some of our network members. And like I previously explained, the network is a collection of voluntary, community, public, private and statutory services. And so these are the people who are coming together to try and make Sheffield the best city that it can be for autistic people. We're at the very beginning of this with SAPN, but we're always encouraging more and more organisations and groups and private and public sector members to join, so that we can work collectively together to make this city the best it can be for people like me, for autistic people who are talking today. Next slide, please, Joe. So last year in July, the central government brought out its new Autism Strategy. And the strategy is for autistic children, young people and adults. And it's from 2021 to 2026. And these are the 6 priority areas that we are hoping to look at in Sheffield and apply to the city. And so priority area 1 is improving understanding and acceptance of autism within society. Priority area 2 is improving autistic children and young people's access to education and supporting positive transitions into adulthood. Priority area 3 is supporting more autistic people into employment. Priority area 4 is tackling health and care inequalities for autistic people. Priority area 5 is building the right support in the community and supporting people in inpatient care. And priority area 6 is improving support within the criminal and youth justice systems. And so all the logos that you saw previously, we are trying to collectively look at where we sit within these priority areas to support Sheffield in being the best city that it can be for autistic people. Next slide, please, Joe. And so today is purely about us asking that first question: how can we make Sheffield more inclusive? And so we're just starting the conversation. We're not saying these things are going to happen. I've not heard any of these presentations. This is people within the network coming with their ideas. They're being creative in their ideas. They're trying to be as inclusive as possible, innovative, and most importantly, we're trying to be proactive, because we all acknowledge that actually being reactive isn't helpful and it harms a lot of people. So we want to be as proactive as possible in supporting Sheffield, in creating a Sheffield strategy that's going to support as many autistic people as possible. So now we're going to go over to the presentations, and the presentations are going to be in this order. First, it's going to be Alexis Chappell, then Blake Williamson, then Chloe Wilkes, and then we're going to go talk to Udit Thackeray. After that, you'll come back to me and we will start our Q&A. And for the Q&A, you can either put your hand up to ask a question, or you can write in the Q&A box, but we can talk about that later. So over to you, Alexis.
Hi everyone. So first of all, I just want to thank the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network and for organising this really crucial event today and for the opportunity to speak. It's a real privilege, so thank you. My name is Alexis Chappell. I'm Director of Adult Social Care in Sheffield City Council, and I also have the privilege of chairing the Autism Partnership Board, which is an all-age board in Sheffield, and dedicated towards improving the lives and outcomes for people with autism in the city, and very much creating an autism-friendly and autism-inclusive Sheffield. So what I'm going to speak about today is a bit about the journey so far and our key next steps. So when I came into post in November 2020, one of the key first things for me, what was really important to do, was to listen to people with autism and family members and parent carers, is to understand people's experiences and to look at how do we then shape a way in going forward. And that listening exercise, I think, was one of the most really crucial pieces of work that I've undertaken since coming into post. And really, I would like to thank everybody who spoke to at the time, because what that really told me about is how we need to go and reshape how we not only take forward practical supports, but really ensure that the voices of family members and unpaid carers and of people with autism are really central to how we go forward, and really shapes not only adult social care, but actually shapes how the city should start to go forward. And it was these views and wishes, from individuals that I spoke to, along with listening to many other people when I came into post, really shaped and helped to go and develop an adult social care strategy for Sheffield. And what our adult social care strategy does is very much set a direction over the next 10 years as to how we will improve the lives and outcomes for people with Sheffield. And in particularly the vision that we co-created for Sheffield was that everybody lives in a place they could call home, and communities that care, doing things that matter to them, and when they receive care and support that prioritises independence, choice and recovery. And our vision and our plan was very much based on what everybody told us, what matters to people in Sheffield, and how we could start to shape and change for the future. And from that journey, the strategy and the plan was approved at what's called the Cooperative Executive on the 16th of March 2022, which I was really delighted about. So as a key next step, and as chair of the Autism Partnership Board, for me, what was really important then is to set out then is then how do we then start to develop a local plan and delivery plan for Sheffield, and that's what we are currently doing. We have as a partnership board, we have on the partnership board we have a range of professionals, but more crucially we have people with lived experience and parent carers. We're all really passionate about how we improve lives and outcomes for people and to absolutely create the Autism-Inclusive Sheffield. And to that end, what we've agreed to go and do is create a local delivery plan, local strategy that we could take and publish across Sheffield that sets out our intentions over the next 10 years, but crucially sets out the practical things that we're going to do and how that aligns to the national strategy, which Melissa talked about. And we're right in the process of finalising that just now. And it's been such a great process because what we are doing is starting to really look at what's the thing, what's the key practical things that will make a difference for people. And one of the key things that we are doing practically on that note is to take forward information and advice hubs, very much linking into the work of the Autism Partnership Network and to colleagues right across the city, so that people with autism and their families could have easily access a range of information about how to receive support and to receive timely support at a time that very much matters to people. And equally, having a range of partnerships in place so that people could also feel included and listened to and engaged and be central to decision making, and that ultimately is what matters. And then finally, have a series of practical actions to look at how are people able to live more independently across Sheffield and very much have access to the right kind of support, including housing support across the city. So that's where we are absolutely, working on just now. And I think, what's been a real privilege about being the kind of chair of the Autism Partnership Board and working with everybody around the board and working with colleagues right across Sheffield is that everybody's as committed as I am to improving lives and outcomes and to absolutely deliver upon the national intentions, but more crucially, doing what matters to the people of Sheffield. That's what counts. So I'm going to stop there. But before I stop, I'd just really like to thank all speakers today who I know are really excellent. And also just a big thank you to Melissa and her leadership and her team who have done so much. And I've watched the partnership grow so much over the last year. And I've taken forward so much with such enthusiasm and commitment. It's their leadership and everybody else who I work with in terms of the board who actually will make an Autism-Inclusive Sheffield. So thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. If you could turn your screen off now, and we will go to Blake Williamson.
Hi, everyone.
I need to do it.
No.
Oh, hi, I'm Alex. I'm one of Blake's PAs.
Hello. I'm Anne. I'm Blake's facilitator. The tapping you can hear is a keyboard I use to speak. I wrote this earlier and go. So he said, I wrote this earlier and now go. So hi, it's great to be here today. I would love for us to look at one of the least discussed aspects of autism and help debunk some of the myths. Non-verbal is exactly what it says on the tin. Me verbalizing my words, it ain't going to happen. That's not the same as someone speaking for me. My facilitator speaks my words instead of me. Some of the misconceptions around this are the 3 Ps: power, patronising, and peeing me off. Power dynamics are at play all around us, but for those of us who do not verbalise, it's a constant battle to be heard, listened to, and respected. It doesn't matter if patronising is done with the best of intentions. It feels exactly the same as if it's deliberate. But when it's delivered by someone who should know better, that's when the 3rd P kicks in. I have lost count of the times my PAs have asked if I want to take such behaviour further, and of the times I feel for their predicament. They have to subdue their natural instincts to argue the incident in situ from their personal ethos of rude, inappropriate behaviour. I have learnt to pick my battles, and as a serial challenger, there has to be some discernment. So the cashier who ahs and blesses me, we sort it out there and then by informing her that I'm in my 30s. But the NHS assessor who asks, what do you like to do socially? And when I say I love the cinema, he asks what kind of films. And my reply, all genres, elicits his response of, genre, requires a little more. The quick to make a judgment about my capacity, intellect, and feelings are suspended for many in the way that pregnant women's bellies become public spaces for others to touch without permission. Having a degree and an MA is my business, and I would normally only share it within a job application. But I have resorted to revealing this in order to stop those who continue to patronise. This also occurs during non-social settings, where often I am present by invitation of the organiser. My method of communication causes lots of speculation, with many assuming that my facilitator holds the power and I am some sort of puppet. So disrespectful, not only to me, but to those who have just spent years acquiring this skill. For many disabled people, regardless of their specific impairments, their lives are compounded by attitudinal discrimination. If we are to make Sheffield a city that understands and respects all of its citizens, then knowledge is key. We have to see the autistic world as personal. If your sister found the world a scary place, wouldn't you want to change it for the better? If your brother found light and noise overwhelming, wouldn't you make some adjustments to your plans so that he's comfortable? If your child didn't feel like he fitted in, wouldn't you have to work at resolving that pain? Unfortunately for me, visiting the city is a scary place. It's an even bigger deal now since the pandemic. I've got used to living life vicariously. The reality is too much. I find it difficult that the beauty of Sheffield, its buildings and culture, is sometimes spoilt by someone's ignorance. To make Sheffield a more comfortable place for many autistic people, we need what you need: space, respect, and a little thought before action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blake. Blake's an integral member of the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network, and we have a meeting once a month, the last Tuesday of every month. And unfortunately, it falls at a time where it's time for Blake to have his cake. And so the first thing I always ask with each session is, what cake are you having today? So I just want to know, Blake, what cake have you had today during break time?
So Melissa, Victoria sponge, so no dribbling, it wasn't chocolate.
Oh, God. I live vicariously through cake and through Blake and his cake, because I'm not allowed cake at the minute. So thank you for sharing that. We're now going over to Chloe Wilkes, who is the coordinator for the Sheffield Safe Places.
Hello everyone, I'm just going to quickly share a short PowerPoint just to go with my words as well. So, there you go. Hello everyone, so I'm the coordinator for Safe Places, and just a quick overview of what Safe Places is. It's a scheme which is a national network which is across the country, and it aims to support anyone who may feel vulnerable when they're out in Sheffield. If someone needs help, for example, they are lost or frightened or they feel anxious, they can enter the nearest safe place for help. My job, in a nutshell, is working with our volunteers across the city of all abilities and our members at the farm as well to train up different organisations that want to be a pillar of safety in their community. I get to meet loads of really cool people and really join up lots of different people that may not necessarily always meet each other and play at everyone's strengths as well, which is amazing. We all have the right to be safe and feel safe in our community, and working together with local communities and some other amazing charities and organisations that champion and support neurodivergent and disabled people in Sheffield. We train, promote and work with these organisations and volunteers who want to be a pillar of trust and safety in their time of need. Here are some pictures drawn by Artwork South Yorkshire, which is a service that gives artists who are mostly neurodivergent a platform to develop their practice and their professional practices and create some amazing exhibition spaces across the city. Their recent exhibition they did was at Wakefield Cathedral. And I work with lots of different organisations like this that do amazing work within their communities and churches and community centres. We work closely with Sheffield Voices, Disability Sheffield, and day services like Healy City Farm, Burton Street, and they all have advocacy groups that help us by targeting and improving things that they experience on their day-to-day life. So it's all right for me to go out there and say this needs changing, but they're living it every day. So I go and talk to them, and I have very open dialogues and relationships with them and see what's needed. We do secret shops. So we go into our safe places with our member volunteers and see if they're accessible enough and if they're accommodating and compassionate and things like that. And if not, we'll give them some feedback and work with them to improve their services. And by creating this open dialogue and discussions with the community groups, we can improve accessibility and educate people and give people the chance of continued improvement as well, because we're looking at long-term changes, not just a short-term tick a box exercise. It's giving that learning and feedback and that continuous dialogue. And as Blake said, knowledge is key. So it's just keeping up that knowledge and keeping everything updated. And in a world where it's easy to become consumed in your own issues and worries, the Safe Places scheme allows communities to come together and help others, and most importantly, create some much needed compassion and understanding. So just giving that 5 minutes and saying, are you okay? Or do you need help? That's what the Safe Places is. So we work a lot with the police and lots of different organisations across the city. It's a big, it gives you a lot of hope that there's change out there as well. This is one of the feedback from one of our members where she wanted to go out more independent, and her mum was nervous about her going out, and just having that option that there's a safe place on her bus route gave her mum and her carers a lot of reassurance that she would be okay if something did happen, because she knew to go there and she'd be able to get help there. The main thing that I was thinking about for this was educate, empower and enrich Sheffield's perception and experience of disability and mental health and neurodivergence across the city, because giving organisations and people in Sheffield the confidence to build bridges and learn from each other by listening to each other and being compassionate is really important, and it'll only get better if people do these things and continue with it as well. It is a national scheme, so there are lots of different ones across the city. So people who use the Safe Places scheme in Sheffield might use it when they go to York or Rotherham and things like that. It's a thing they can use wherever they go. And then last but not least, here are some pictures from one of our workshops we did of our artists that have drew some safe places that they love going to and that they've used before. So we really do promote and try and champion all these little organisations and give a platform and a voice to the people who are often underrepresented, and they might not find it difficult to get their voice out there and get their views out there. So that's my job. I'm a conduit to getting people's voices out. So thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. And as we've said before in a previous discussion, we understand that this will not be able to help everybody, but for the people that it can help and support, it can make such a big difference to their lives and to them feeling independent in a world that's often very confusing and very scary for them. So thank you for your contribution today. I appreciate it. And finally, we're going to go to Udit Thackeray.
A+ on the pronunciations, Melissa. And also, Melissa, can I request you to keep your video on? It would help me immensely. It is also to acknowledge that I would not be here without Melissa. Melissa cares for me like I'm her own child, and that care is worth its weight in gold, and it is something I do not take lightly at all. It's a huge privilege. So I would like to preface all that I'm saying, I would like to preface all that I am saying by stating that I only speak for myself and not all autistic people who are not racialized as white. I identify as a sojourner who feels intersectionally unsafe in Sheffield. Sheffield symbolizes white supremacist, ableist, capitalist heteropatriarchy on steroids. And in my experience, asking residents and institutions of Sheffield racialized as white to reflect with contrition on the intersections of whiteness, disableism, capitalism, and patriarchy has been akin to asking a donkey to reflect on its musical abilities. There is violent denial in the residents and institutions of Sheffield that their status quo is intersectionally violent and intergenerationally genocidal towards anyone who isn't racialized as white, with other intersections of marginalization. White supremacy isn't something like the KKK or BNP. White supremacy is the normalization of all white or white majority institutions, panels, and spaces going unchallenged, and anyone challenging it being ontologically destroyed. The affordable paradise of Sheffield only exists for individuals racialized as white. The same paradise exists as a green, unpleasant land, as an affordable purgatory for individuals not racialized as white. As a cis heterosexual male, I am a disproportionate beneficiary of patriarchal systems. I am a survivor of sexual abuse and have knowingly and unknowingly perpetrated sexual abuse as well. As much as my intent and purpose is to be a part of the solution in feminist ways, the only individuals who can assess that accurately are those who are marginalized by patriarchy. I also embody the privileges of being middle class, educated to the master's level, and I'm only going to be educated more. And I communicate very skillfully in a very oppressive language, English. I speak 7 other languages too, just saying. I would also like to acknowledge my structural disadvantages as someone who is racialized other than white, as an immigrant in a white supremacist nation, and as a disabled person. My neurodivergence is characterized by ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. I identify as autistic. I am not a person with autism. Along with dysthymia, these constitute the royal flush of my neurodivergence. In their 2022 paper, This Was Just How Friendships Worked, Experiences of Interpersonal Victimization Among Autistic Adults, Dr. Amy Pearson, a developmental psychologist at the University of Sunderland, who is also a personal friend, and their colleagues, conducted what is quite possibly the first study to directly ask autistic people about their own experiences of being hurt by people they know and highlight what they feel is important for us to know about it. I'm now going to quote from the paper. Interpersonal victimization refers to violence and abuse which occurs within close personal relationships committed by people such as friends, family members, carers, or significant others. Interpersonal victimization can involve sexual and financial exploitation. For example, forcing someone into unwanted sexual activity with oneself or others, forcing someone to give you your money, so on and so forth, physical or psychological abuse or emotional abuse, and humiliation and cruelty. The findings highlighted the experience of polyvictimization, which is victimizations in multiple relationships and in multiple social contexts, with many participants having experienced multiple forms of interpersonal violence across their lifespan. The findings suggest that autistic adults experience victimization from a range of close others and may find it difficult to recognize when someone is acting in an abusive manner. Many participants had experienced heightened compliance in response to unreasonable requests from others. However, reasons for this were varied, like fear, the desire to avoid confrontation. Many participants told that they had been hurt more than once by different people. For example, their parents and people who they thought were friends and significant others. Some people said that they found it difficult to tell whether someone is treating them badly and to trust their own judgment about other people's behaviors. Some people said that they felt like they had to do what other people told them to. Some did this to avoid getting other people into trouble, whereas others did it because they were scared of what would happen if they said no. These findings have implications for developing support systems which enable autistic adults to recognize their own boundaries and advocate for themselves, in addition to helping them recognize what a healthy relationship looks like. The findings from this study could be used to think about how we can support autistic people in saying no if someone tells them to do something that they don't want to do. They can also be used to find ways to help people to recognize when other people are being hurtful. And I hope that this study and work that follows up on this study will make other researchers and practitioners interested in learning how to support autistic people who have been hurt by people they know. I forgot to mention that Dr. Amy Pearson, the lead researcher on this paper, is autistic as well. The paper acknowledges that more research is needed to understand the interpersonal victimization experiences of autistic people from their perspective, taking into account the context of social relationships and acknowledging the complexity of why autistic people may be at a heightened risk. Such research can help us to begin to ascertain what can be done to A, minimize victimization, and B, to provide support. Today, I would like to share systems and facilities I would like to see specific to sex and consent education, education about close interpersonal violence, and its intersections with autism and racism. To address the violences that have been mentioned, and every one of those violences are something I have experienced, I would like to share some solutions that would help me. A, psychology should be taught as a subject from primary school. Humans spend their entire lives interacting and transacting with other humans, and nuanced language and knowledge of human thought, behavior, and emotions is an asset to live a socially and emotionally intelligent life. Sex education, B, sex education and consent education specifically tailored to the learning patterns of autistic individuals, and even more tailored to account for other factors such as cultural differences, accompanying disabilities, and language differences. This kind of sex education should center the survivors of sexual abuse and non-consensual violence and be available freely and inclusively. In recent times, the books Rough by Rachel Thompson, Losing It by Sophia Smith-Gaylor, and The Right to Sex by Amiya Srinivasan, and Between Fitness and Death, Disability and Slavery in the Caribbean by Dr. Stephanie Hunt Kennedy have been immensely helpful to me, as the sex and consent education and the historical education behind this that I have never had, and have helped me immensely to establish standards that I should be living up to, and helped me conduct myself in intersectionally responsible ways. And by extension, expecting everyone around me to conduct themselves in those ways as well. Complex histories of disabilities and racialized minoritization should be taken into account when either legal or community accountability processes are being conducted. Only focusing on one or few factors of one's identity carries the risk of not acknowledging the entire picture of an act of violence, and further risks tremendous injustice. In no way am I saying that victim blaming should be allowed. But in such cases, it is especially important to acknowledge the presence and contortions induced by whiteness in terms of the biases it creates, and the individuals, it empowers and disempowers in a system that is already very imbalanced in terms of power. Autism activism has a very serious whiteness problem. And without it being intersectional, contemporary autism activism only commits more harm than good. Along with dating and socialization services, which are specific to autistic people, they should also be tailored to account for the differences in ethnicity and culture. Along with that, there should also be services that train neurotypical people about understanding autistic behaviors and how they should be conducting themselves with autistic people. The burden of social adaptation and adjustment should not be solely that of the marginalized autistic people. To paraphrase Audre Lorde, it is not the job of the oppressed to teach the oppressors what oppression is. Developing facilities where autistic people can engage safely in sexual activity with their sensory needs met and safely on intersectional counts. And all of these being catered as a paramount priority. G, consistent, open, and blunt, if necessary, communications at all times. When in doubt, ask. Autistic people normally are okay with answering back. These are things that I would like to have for myself. There is no textbook autistic person as against the hyper prevalence of the stereotype of white middle-class boys as the only individuals who can be autistic and whose autism is validated not only by whiteness, but by patriarchy as well. All that I have shared today is intended as a starting point to encourage you to conduct yourself in intersectionally inclusive ways. Because if you do not do so, you will end up inhabiting the position of being cold, calculating, messianic, ableist, and white supremacist surrogates of the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Odette. And like I say all the time, and it does make some people feel uncomfortable, but autistic people are like anybody else, and autistic people enjoy sex. We just need to understand sexual relationships better. And what's happening now as more adults are getting diagnosed in adulthood, you know, they have experienced things like sexual abuse in their past because they didn't understand when to say no or how to say no, or they wanted to please people, or there was confusion around those sexual relationships. So I really do appreciate Udit coming with his ideas on how we can make Sheffield inclusive by creating something to help autistic people understand relationships, especially sexual relationships, better. So thank you very much for that. So now it's time to go over to our Q&A section. And as part of that, if people don't feel comfortable writing in the Q&A box, they can put their hands up to ask a question. But I will start off with the first question for the panel. And I guess I want to know, do you feel that Sheffield will get better? Or do you feel we are doomed? And that might sound like quite a depressing question, but I want to be really realistic here. I want to really think about what we can achieve.
Melissa, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a comment that's disturbing me. I would like clarification on that.
What question is that?
Yeah, so there's a comment that says, interesting safeguarding admission there. I guess someone of you has a reporting duty or knows that has already been done. I do not understand what that means.
I don't understand what it means either. Perhaps that person could elaborate on that.
I think that was in response to your talk, Udit, and that was a message that just went to the hosts and panelists.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So we can discuss that afterwards then, and try and understand it better. Thank you. So yeah, do we think do we think making Sheffield autism inclusive is can it be achieved?
Can I go?
Sorry.
So I think from my perspective anyway, as somebody who works across the community and trains people up and talks to lots of different people, for example, I was training up at all the Meadowhall security and customer service teams last week. There is a lot of hope out there because a lot of organisations come to me on a weekly basis wanting to be a safe place and wanting to have free training and learn more about how they can facilitate people and be more, accessible and communicate with people better. But there is limited resources out there for them to do that, and time, especially if they're a small organisation and they may only have maybe 3 staff, to have the time to train and take that time out to do that and to learn to improve their services and how to facilitate that's really difficult. And that's I'm constantly working on it and trying to work with different people to try and improve it. But I think that's the main barrier in the way for trying to help Sheffield.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to have an opinion on that? Alexis?
Yeah, so I'm going to say I have to have continued hope that we will do. Because for me, that's the reason, to me, what's really important about the Autism Partnership Board and the work that you're doing, Melissa, and actually, listen to Blake, who again, I always love listening to Blake. I think we have to have hope and we have to work together to see what we can do to ensure that absolutely that we do work towards reaching the autism-friendly and autism-inclusive Sheffield, and we really take on board what people are saying, so that then informs what we do differently in Sheffield. And to me, that's what's really important, is that we listen to the views and voices of and that then shapes how we go forward. And for me, I have to have continued hope. That's why I'm here. And that's what I will always continue to go and aim for, inspire, try to work with, and absolutely reach for in Sheffield. That's it. And I do have the privilege of working with so many good people around me who I know I want to include, do exactly the same thing. So to me, it's that partnership that will get us there as well. So I have continued hope.
Odette?
Yep. So in saying whatever I have to say and in doing whatever I have to do, see, essentially, so me in my position and Melissa in her position are anomalies. We are anomalies in a system that is trying to kill us every day. At the same time, we are humans. As much as the system is structured in a way that if you're white, you're human. If you're not white, you're not human. So as a human, I am centering even before my right to life, I'm centering my right to sanity, the right to not be driven insane, which is something that the Tibetan freedom activist Lasang Sering talks about elaborately. I'm centering my right to not be driven insane by making the choice that me being here or being anywhere in saying what I have to say and doing what I have to do, I'm not here to teach you anything. It is not my job. Knowing what to learn, knowing what to fix, knowing what to do is your responsibility. I'm only here to hold you to account. And that is all I will always be.
Thank you, Odette.
Because individuals who are racialized as white are pathologically and historically obsessed with policing everyone but themselves. And that is exactly why this country is a fart stuck in a time capsule. So, because it's clearly that it is so problematic, it's not even a joke. But in paying obsequious gratitude to politeness, nobody wants to challenge it, and nobody wants to do any, and nobody wants to even considers doing anything about it. Doing something about it is like it's a far cry. I think, acceptance is the first step. And in saying what I have to say and doing what I have to do, I'm emphasizing very bluntly on accepting and naming very clearly that Sheffield is a white supremacist and ableist city. It has a very, very long way to go. And if conversations like these are not backed by action, it is nothing but masturbation. It's useless. You're muted, Melissa.
Right, so we've got some questions in the Q&A box. So the first question or statement is, very glad those diagnosed late mentioned. I was 64. I don't qualify for any support and will have to pay for therapy, etc. Just wondering how those like me can get support, and is there any funding anywhere for making improvements? One of the things that we within the Sheffield Autism Partnership Network are trying to do is build relationships with charities such as like Dementia UK and things like that, so that they have a better understanding of autism for people who are older, because people in that age group, in that cohort, are getting diagnosed. And again, there's little to no understanding of it. So that's what we're trying to do from our perspective, is trying to encourage groups and charities that look after mature autistic people to be a part of our network, so that we can then collectively interact with Alexis and the Autism Partnership Board to ensure that strategies and things are put in place to support that age group. But that's what we can do from our side. Would you like to mention anything, Alexis?
What I was thinking is, I think it's a really good question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this as an agenda item within the Autism Partnership Board, but also link with colleagues in the NHS Sheffield Clinical Commissioning Group to look at what are the options and opportunities and supports that's available. Because I think the person who kind of raised the question, I think is a really good point, because people are being diagnosed later. And the question is then, what kind of support, and particularly emotional and psycho, what support is around, and so I'm going to take that as an action from today, and to take that forward. And so I just want to say thank you who raised the question. And if you want to get in touch with me, please get in touch. I'll leave, and I would really welcome a conversation.
Thank you. Next question. How can autistic children and young people...
Melissa Blake just something.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Blake. Sorry, I can't see the full screen.
He just wanted to say that what Sheffield doesn't do well is take up offers of training from experts by experience.
Yeah.
If they did, I think that would go a long way to...
Yeah, and it is frustrating that that happens a lot. And just because, I mean, there's 3 of us on here that are autistic, and, you can see actually we're all very eloquent in talking about our lived experiences. I think, unfortunately, sometimes there's a prejudice towards autistic people doing training, and there's a misconception that we're not autistic enough to represent autistic people, which is, for me, very patronising. So yeah, I totally agree with you there, Blake. So the next question was, how can autistic children and young people be heard in schools? Their experience, be heard in schools and be given the reasonable adjustments they're entitled to. Can anybody answer that question, or is that something that needs to be taken away? Does that need to be taken away? I don't know.
That's maybe like a funding thing. It comes down to funding, because if they need reasonable adjustments, that means maybe extra support or a little bit of extra help, and that normally costs money, and things keep being cut, so it's really difficult. Because I've got quite bad dyslexia myself, and I struggled a lot at school, and I didn't learn basic maths and English until I was 18, and I took one teacher to take me aside and teach me how to do fractions. She literally ripped a bit of paper in half and went, half, and I was like, amazing, and it changed my life. And it takes that one person to do that, so it's just weighing up where the funding goes, and I think that's the difficulty.
I think though that children who do have additional needs are given additional funding. Additional funding is injected into that school to look after that autistic child if they have something called an educational health and care plan. So there is, sometimes I think it's about how the funding is allocated,
yeah,
and how they use the resources.
Yeah.
Melissa, it's also important to remember who allocates the funding and who do they allocate it to.
Yeah.
So most likely in Sheffield, the person allocating the funding is white. The person they will allocate to will be white. As much as, yes, it's a legal duty under the Equality Act. It is not it's not omission. It is omission by proxy, by structural proxy, that it's happening. That I know of from anecdotal experience. I know of families and children who have been begging for Senkos to arrange for their kids to be evaluated, not getting any help. I know of individuals in the end. I know of one of my friends who mentioned anecdotally that in an NHS hospital that she was working in, she was working in a neurosurgery clinic, and she mentioned to me that she could categorically see that all the people who are being considered for neurosurgical procedures, they're all white, and they are literally excluding individuals who are not racialized as white from neurosurgical procedures. If something,
so the unconscious bias and the microaggressions are then kicking in.
So the choice of the word unconscious is an excrementitious function of whiteness. It is conscious. Whiteness wants to kill us. It is as simple as that. It is very clear. If you have been programmed in very, very, very small accumulative ways across your lifespan and continue to be programmed in such ways, to think of people who look like you and people who look like me as lesser or not even mortal, it's easy to kick us around like footballs. It's very easy to kick us around like footballs.
So, now, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm aware of the time and it's 2:00. And I knew this would happen because actually it's such a big area that we just don't have the time. Now we've got some questions on here that I'd like a commitment, I think, from Alexis for you and I to take these questions away and go to the correct people to ask these questions, and then probably on our website and on maybe the Autism Partnership Board, answer these questions. And what we'll do when we send out this recording, because the recording will be subtitled, we'll ensure that they have a link to go to the responses to these questions. Does that sound right? Yeah? Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm really sorry we've not been able to answer all the questions, because all the questions are really, really thought-provoking. And to me, this is the very beginning of our first conversation about things like this. I think we should be having these open conversations where people feel included, because this is about Sheffield as a whole. I would like to personally thank everybody for taking part in this. I think you all bring such a wealth of knowledge and understanding, especially to my autistic brothers who are both fighting the fight like I am. I really appreciate and value you being a part of this. It was really important to have you both here, so thank you so much for that. Thank you for Festival of Debate for helping us start this conversation, and thank you for the audience, and have a good Jubilee, have a good bank holiday, and I will speak to everybody soon. So over to you, Joe.
Just a final thanks for me for Melissa for curating today's event and inviting all of our speakers, and to all of our speakers as well for talking about their lived experience. I know you know, these issues can be traumatic as well. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for sharing the time and your energy today. That's it from us from the Festival of Debate, pretty much entirely actually for this year. But thank you everyone for attending. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.